I welcome everybody to the League of Women Voters of Colorado's Alternative Voting Methods Task Force meeting for August. It's August 18th. Here is our agenda. We only have two main items on the agenda. We're going to have a presentation by Colorado College students who've been working with Professor Beth Malmskog. The title of the presentation is Simulating Single Transferable Voting for the Colorado State House. And then the second thing on the agenda is finalizing for our group a letter to the Secretary of State requesting rules for single transferable vote and approval voting. And then we would send that to the leadership and ask about getting other groups to sign, things like that. So if there's something else people want to put on the agenda, we're pretty relaxed here. We can add something in, but we do want to let the Colorado College students go first. And you can speak up at any time during the meeting. I can't see people right now, so I need Pat or Jen or somebody to let me know if somebody has their hand up. When you signed into the meeting, you agreed to these norms, so I don't need to go through them. Here are our quote minutes from the last meeting. We started the draft letter to the Secretary of State. We talked about Denver election proposals, and we'll mention a little bit more about that today. Somebody, Dylan Rankin from Longmont, talked about a 2026 ballot proposal, and we talked about the fact that the National League has declared a constitutional crisis, and they have a campaign called Unite and Rise 8.5, basically in response to the issues we're seeing these days. We'll do meeting introductions right now, and I'm going to stop sharing. And Jen, you want to call on people to speak up?
I'll start. I'm Jen. I'm a math professor at CU Boulder. Beth is actually a collaborator of mine. We have a lot of fun working together, and I'm excited for her students to present. I'm also a member of the Boulder County League. And yeah, that's me. So, Pat.
Hi, I'm Pat Ventura. I'm also in the Boulder County League and on the voting methods team. And I'm going to check people in. So that's all I'm going to say.
Beth.
Hi, I'm Beth Malmskog. I'm a professor of mathematics at Colorado College, and I'm also a member of the Pikes Peak Region League. Yeah, I'm very excited to bring to you these wonderful students who have been working with me this summer.
Great. Nora.
Hi, I'm Nora. I'm a student at Colorado College. I'm a math major. I've been working with Dr. Malmskog this summer and my other two collaborators, and we'll be presenting today. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, welcome. Iris.
Hi, I'm Iris. I'm a rising junior at Colorado College. I'm majoring in political science and minoring in math. I'm from Parker, Colorado, and I'm also super excited to be sharing what we're working on.
Great. Catherine.
First of all, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure my computer mic was working. Hi, I'm Catherine. I am the third of Beth's three students who worked on this project this summer. I'm a math and physics major at Colorado College, and I will be a junior in the fall. And today I am zooming in from Atlanta.
Welcome. Katina.
Hi, I am Katina Frierson. I'm the Director of Development and Communications at the state office here in Colorado.
All right, Tony.
Tony Larson, and I'm a member of the Denver League, and I have been a member of the league for over 50 years. So I've held all kinds of positions and done all kinds of things, mostly environmental. But I want to say I'm really happy to see Colorado College students, and I would like to let you know that I am a graduate of Colorado College, and I graduated in '62 before the block plan, if you can believe that. And so You'll do wonderful things.
Great. Britt,
Talking to me?
I know Britt.
Brett, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, I'm Britta Singer. I'm a member of the Boulder County League, and I show up at these meetings and just listen. So thank you for not kicking me out.
Thomas.
Hi, I'm a member of the Adams County League, and I'm a member of RCV for Colorado as well. And that's enough, I guess.
Okay. Neil Bergstrom.
Yes, hello. I'm a member of the Arapahoe Douglas County League. I'm also a graduate of Colorado College in physics in 1977. And my son is a chemistry graduate from Colorado College in 2023.
Great. Danny.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm a member of the La Plata County League, and I'm just trying to find out more information about this topic.
Great. Welcome. Chris.
I'm Chris Baum, and I'm a approval voting advocate, and was also a candidate for Congressional District 8, and for some unknown reason got 5,700 votes, which was more than the margin that the winner won by. So, and I spent 58 cents on my campaign. So, glad to be.
Rich. Oh,
Hi, Rich Lenz, also known as the Stamp Guy. More about that if there's a moment. I'm with the El Paso County League of Women Voters.
Great. Barb.
Yep, I'm from Greeley-Weld League of Women Voters, also serve on the state board and voter service, and I'm interested in all things voting.
Hey, Neil McBurnett.
Hi, Neil McBurnett, and I've been interested in voting methods since the 80s and active in the Boulder League and nationally, and we need proportional approval voting.
Shelley.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Shelley Roars with the League of Women Voters in the Pikes Peak region. Thank you so much for having us. And thank you, Colorado College and Beth and all the students for presenting today.
And Wendy.
Hi, Wendy from the Colorado Forward Party, interested in election reform of any kind. Anything's better than what we've got. And I am a supporter of the League of Women Voters. And I'm in Grand Junction.
All right. I think that's everybody. Did I miss anyone? All right, Celeste, back to you.
And I am Celeste Landry, and I've been working on voting methods for more than a decade, and I think that's why I ended up getting put in this position. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go back to sharing my screen. I have okay, we have a few announcements. Okay, here we go. Okay, I hope you can all see the meeting introductions slide. Somebody say you can see this new slide. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we do a few announcements usually at the beginning. In terms of voting methods news, the Denver City Council at its meeting last week narrowly decided not to advance a ballot proposal to use instant runoff voting for Alt's single winner municipal election contests. So it will not appear on the November ballot, is my understanding. And there was talk about maybe petitioning onto the ballot. Is it too late for that now, Tony?
I'm not sure I know the rules for Denver.
Okay.
And what the deadline is for getting something. I know certainly at the state level, you wouldn't be able to do it.
Right. Okay. Earlier when this was in committee, if it had not passed committee, what I had heard was that they were going to try to put it on the ballot by petition. But I think it might be too late now.
Yeah, only a couple months or so.
So that was one of the two things that we talked about last year. last meeting. And then we have a brand new web page in Boulder County on proportional representation. So you can link to it on this QR code, or you can go to lwvbc.org, issues, voting methods. And I put it in red, and maybe you can't see it if you're colorblind. I know at least one person out there is, but I put it in red as like an action item for you all to do this. This is like your homework from this meeting. So I hope you do go check out this webpage at lwvbc.org. Go to the menu, go to issues, then go to voting methods, or use the QR code. Okay. An announcement about gerrymandering. It's happening right now in Texas, and it's on the ballot, or expected to be on the ballot in California. And the U.S. Fair Representation Act would get rid of gerrymandering, basically. It was recently reintroduced in this session. It's H.R. 4632. It would create multi-member districts and use the single transferable vote that we're going to hear about today, form of RCV, to elect members of the U.S. House. And then if there's a single winner contest, like U.S. senators are elected in single winner contests, and if you live in Wyoming, you have only one House member, then you would just use instant runoff voting for those contests. So here's another action item in red. You, as an individual, can ask your U.S. representative to co-sponsor the bill. And for whatever reason, Joe Neguse is not on the list of co-sponsors this year, but he has been in the past. It may be because he's in leadership, and so he is maybe more cautious about which bills he co-sponsors. But if he hears from lots of us, and you all, if you're not in his district and you reach out to your representative, that could, it might have an impact. In any case, it will help with education and visibility. So that's the second action item. I think those are the only two homework items for you to consider taking on. There are some studies. Maine conducted a study on proportional representation. It's very easy to find it. You just go to lwvme.org. That's Maine is ME/PRCV. And PRCV is the same thing as single transferable vote. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. And then the last thing about studies is there's a state league primary election reform study. It's about 90% complete. And if you'd like to be involved in finalizing the report before we take it to membership for consensus meetings, now's a great time to speak up. So we'd love to have your help on that. Today, right now, in terms of upcoming events, the Denver City Council is meeting for the second of the two charter amendments that they were considering last week. This one passed on the reverse vote. It passed to go to this reading by one vote. So I don't know if this one's going to pass or not today. It'll be very interesting. My take on it was some people wanted both of the instant runoff voting and changing the way at-large council members are elected together in order as a package. And so this one was voted on first. It barely passed. Instant runoff voting was second. It barely failed. So I don't know if this one's going to get on the ballot. I'm kind of curious.
Neil has his hand up.
Okay, Neil.
Yeah, just wondering, and I forget, I ought to remember, if we have a position, have thought about how to be able to take a position. I think it's a terrible idea, the second bill. I think it would be bad even along with the first bill. I think it moves away from the solution that we're looking for, and that districts, it moves towards, it's not districts, but towards something that reduces the competitiveness of individual seats. So I'm just wondering if we
So
have
I've
thought
talked to
about
the
that.
Denver City Council folks, and they have not taken a position on this. And they, I mean, Tony, if you want to speak up more, but my understanding was they were going to kind of wait to see if it got on the ballot before they
This would
worried
do-
very much about it.
Excuse me. This would do a little work, but
What do you mean this would do a little work?
um, do a little work, but I think it would, if there's a group of people and you can identify them that are interested in proposing something that's different than what the council has been working with to date. This seems to me to be an opportune time to do that. And so it would be up to you to develop the people who would work on something different. This is just my own opinion. I know it's going to take a lot of work, but I think there's been a lot of, from the league's point of view, there are a lot of things wrong with what's been proposed. And we really need to try to get something better on the ballot.
I was listening to last week's city council meeting, and some of the council members are saying the only change people have specifically asked for is staggered elections. They don't like voting every 4 years. So we could do the odd numbered wards or districts, I guess they're called, in 1 year, and then the even numbered districts 2 years later. And that way you could have one at large in this year and a different at large 2 years from now. And they think that, I mean, so that idea was talked about pretty forcefully, it seemed to me.
But staggering would also make for a manageable number of seats for an STV election.
Exactly. That's true. I mean, one idea that I've suggested is look at Portland's situation, where they divided the city up into 4 sections and elected 3 council members from each.
What's the problem with the office?
What's that?
If that person's not going to chime in, I think
Okay.
if you want to do something different, at least you put together an outline of what a bill would be and start building on that. I hear what you say the public wants from the city council people.
Yeah.
But that's one person. It's not probably the whole city council. It's not necessarily it's not a change. It's just putting it on 2 different voting times. So I think if you really want something, you outline what you want.
But I think, Tony, if it's league people doing it, we need to go through the Denver League, right? We submit it to the Denver League folks.
Well,
right?
well, talk to the Denver League that can help you develop this.
Yeah.
You make sure that they're included every step of the way.
Yeah.
But, I just think you need something concrete that you can talk to people about and what you think the best way of doing this is. And,
Okay.
It may take a while to get it done. It may take years. I'm so
It won't.
optimistic. I've been at the legislature for a long time.
It won't be this year, I don't think.
No, I
So,
think not. But it's a good time to start.
So maybe we do a show of hands. Who's interested in doing an alternate proposal? Working on that with Denver. I don't see hands because I don't have that unless I stop sharing. Is anybody? Neil, you brought it up. Are you interested?
I am. I mean, I think that this is the opportunity to to be clearer, even just with 2 seats. I think proportional representation gives a third of the population a vote with 2 seats. So yeah, I would be happy to participate. This is not something that I would kind of be the drafter, but yeah.
But Neil, we're not limited to just the 2 seats.
I understand that.
I mean, we could go to the Portland idea, which has, 12
And
members.
Neil, you don't have to be the drafter, you have to be the outliner.
Okay. Anybody else besides Neil? I mean, I'm always interested in these things. It gets me in trouble.
Me too.
I don't see any hands because I can't see hands. So I'm just going to go on to the next part of this slide so we can hear
Celeste?
from our. Yes.
I'm interested, but I can't be a primary anyway. Maybe as
Is
a
this
reviewer
Tom?
or something. Yeah, this is Tom.
Okay, good. That would be great. Okay. I mean, you could be in the discussion of what might be a good, some ideas we could run by you, or you could contribute. Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay.
We'll include you. Great. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and move on then. So every month I announce that Fair Vote Canada has a PR for Proportional Representation 101 webinar, and next month's conflicts with our task force meeting, but I'm putting it on here anyway. So I hope instead you come to our meeting, or if you're 2 people, you go to both meetings, but our next meeting will be September 15th. Okay, we like to put up the national position here because it's pretty strong in terms of proportional representation. The highlighted part reads, the League supports electoral systems that elect policymaking bodies, legislatures, councils, commissions, and boards that proportionally reflect the people they represent. We support systems that inhibit political manipulation, e.g. gerrymandering. So today we're going to hear about single transferable vote, which is a proportional voting method. So we're focused laser-like on proportional representation today. Okay, so you got a little introduction to the Colorado College students when we went around, but just a few background things. Single transferable vote is, or voting, either way, is often called proportional ranked choice voting. And it's used in multi-winner, multi-member districts. And a very interesting thing about it is it doesn't have to be party-based. In this world, most of the proportional elections are only proportional by party of the candidate. So, but STV is not that kind. So this is excellent for municipalities to use, for instance. So here's a ranked voting ballot. And this is what a single transferable vote ballot or an instant runoff voting ballot would look like. You just rank your choices in order. Don't duplicate any rankings. Try not to skip any rankings. It won't help you. And an interesting thing about these ballots is that you may only get your first choice to count. After that, it's guaranteed to count. So make sure you vote your first choice, the one you really want to give your vote to. And I don't know how much Iris and Catherine and Nora are going to talk about the tabulation method, but I did put this up here just as an introduction. Thank you, Beth Momskog, for bringing this presentation to our attention. We're very excited. Thank you, Iris, Nora, and Catherine. And as I mentioned, they're all majoring or minoring in math, and they're all, I'm not calling you rising juniors anymore. I think people are starting to show up at Colorado College. Maybe they're only the freshmen showing up, but anyway, that is it for me. I'm going to stop sharing and come back on when this presentation is done. And I think, Iris, you're the one presenting?
Yes, I'm going to start sharing.
Okay.
Let me know if you guys can see this.
We saw it, and now, yes, we see it.
I see it.
I'm trying to, oh, here we go. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for having us this evening. We're really excited to talk about the research project we've been working on this summer. We spent 5 weeks in July on campus working with Beth on a project about single transferable voting, working on our coding skills and our presenting skills and our communication skills. And during our presentation today, we're hoping to answer this question: how would using multi-member districts and ranked choice ballots with single transferable voting affect party representation in the Colorado State House? And Celeste kind of gave some good background information at the beginning. And we also don't super know what background you all are coming into this with, but we kind of wanted to talk about these two important ideas that we're going to reference throughout the presentation. Single transferable voting, as Celeste said, it uses ranked ballots in multi-member districts. It's instant runoff voting, but for electing multiple members to a legislative body. And the way it works is by transferring each voter's vote among their most preferred candidates. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Colorado Voting Rights Act, which was signed earlier this year. We're particularly interested in the section that talks about vote dilution or preventing vote dilution, and how the Colorado Voting Rights Act says that if there's a voting system or changes to the existing system that exists, that would reduce vote dilution, or making it so communities of interest have a lower chance of electing the candidates that they prefer, then the voting system that reduces vote dilution has to be considered for implementation in Colorado. And through our work, we try to explore if STV might be a system that does this.
So the Data and Democracy Lab is a leader in this area of research. One of their areas of study is exploring the expected effects STV would have in certain states and cities, particularly looking at racial representation. And through their work, they have found that STV, in fact, would provide much more proportional results in regards to race. They've also designed many methods and tools for doing this work, which they've made publicly available, and we were able to use in our work. We were able to use Python packages that gave us tools for generating ballots, simulating elections, and creating districting maps.
So we had 4 big steps in the process we wanted to carry out. First thing we wanted to do was generate 10,000 districting plans to simulate elections on. We would do 10,000 instead of just 1 to eliminate some of the bias in any singular district plan we could have used. Second thing we have to do is generate the ranked ballots for each plan, given the multi-member districts in it. A third thing we have to do is truncate those ballots, which is essentially simulating for people don't fill out every single slot every single time. And the fourth thing we have to do is run the elections themselves, and then we can find the makeup of the House for each districting plan.
Now we're going to go into a little more detail on each of those 4 steps. So the first thing we wanted to do was create a bunch of possible maps to run our simulation on. And we started this by creating one map. We looked at the existing federal congressional map when we were creating our new multi-member district plan, so that we could kind of take some of the input from communities of interest that was used in creating that map in our map. And multi-member districts often elect 3, 4, or 5 candidates. So we decided that we would have 13 multi-districts that each elect 5 candidates. And once we created this map, which you can see over here on the right of the slide, we used the Jerry chain package that Nora was talking about to create 10,000 maps from that starting point. A high-level overview of how that works is it randomly selects 2 districts from the map and combines them, and then splits them up differently. So includes 5 different single-member districts. And as you might imagine, as that process keeps repeating and different districts keep being selected and divided differently, you're going to end up getting some really different maps. And the Jerry Chain program randomly samples from these maps to select the maps that it outputs for us to use in our simulation. Something that was also important to us when we were creating these districting plans is making sure that they were reasonable. So we made sure they were all contiguous or one piece, each district, also reasonably compact, and we wanted them to all have similar populations. So we made sure that they were all within 2% of the same population. And then here you can see some examples of what the outputs from Jerry Chain are. If you look at like the map in the top left, which is from like early in the process, and the map at the bottom right, which is from late in the process, you can see how much the overall map changes throughout that process. And what this means is that we are using maps that are very different. And if we get results that are similar from all of these maps, it means that our results are pretty strong.
So to generate ranked ballots for each of these maps, we used a model created by the Data and Democracy Lab. This particular model fills out ballots one ranking at a time until all of the candidates are ranked. Each spot on the ballot is filled based on the voter's party and the candidates preferred by that party. To estimate the number of Democratic and Republican voters there were in the state and in each district, we used the 2022 Attorney General election results. We chose this election because it's recent and because the candidates in the Attorney General race are less well known compared to other statewide races like governor. And because of this, we thought that people would be more likely to vote in line with their party rather than based on the specific candidates. To use this model, we also had to determine how cohesive each of the parties were. So we estimated this using exit poll results from the past few years in Colorado. We found, looking at those exit polls, that Democrats tended to vote more in line with their party than Republicans. And using numbers from those polls, we settled at having Democrats vote along party lines about 93% of the time, and Republicans vote along party lines about 88% of the time. Another factor in an election is how strong each candidate is, or like how favorable each candidate is. So we could kind of imagine scenarios where all the candidates were equally preferred, or where there was one or two more preferred candidates. And we thought that this would vary by district. So we decided to make it random per each multi-district how preferred each of the candidates were. We also had to decide on the number of candidates we thought might run per multi-district. We thought that the number of candidates per party would likely be related to the number of voters of that party in the multi-district. So we decided to make the number of candidates per party be the number of seats that party would expect to secure plus 2. So this would make it so we don't have a huge number of candidates running, but also it allows for some variation with that plus 2.
All right, I'm now going to talk about the truncation step. The word truncate literally means to shorten, among other things, I guess. But that's what it means in this case. Essentially, we wanted to simulate, as I mentioned on the big step slide, the different possibilities of voters filling out ballots different lengths. Some people will put their favorite candidate on a ballot and submit it, even though they can list a dozen. Some people will fill it all out. Some people will just put all the candidates from their party. Some people will fill out the number of seats. A lot of people like filling out exactly 3 for some reason is something we found. But we wanted to make a distribution to draw from for the length of each ballot. And the reason we wanted a distribution is because, as much as we could have just said X% are this, X% are this, each vote, each filling out of a ballot is by a person in a booth completely independently. So per election, the proportions of how many are one candidate, how many are full, etc., is going to inherently vary as opposed to being fixed. So in order to construct our distribution, we first wanted to find a data set of ballots to mimic. And the 2019 Cambridge City Council election is what we settled on. It is also an STV ranked choice election, and it is the most recent from the Cambridge City Council, which has been using this system for at least a decade. So the voters in this election, many of them have filled out several ballots like this before, and it is not their first time. So we looked at some common trends between them over these years, and we chose some main points to structure our distribution around. Cambridge one is on the left with 15 total candidates as the maximum ballot length, and ours is 9. 5 candidates per multi-district plus 2 from each party will give us 9 running every time. So we chose the main points that stuck out to us of 1 candidate, 3 candidates, the number of seats that candidates would end up being elected to, and the full ballot length. And we structured the rest around that, mapping them over. That look different for different regions. The peaks of 3 and 9 are transposed to the peaks of 3 and 5 on ours. So they're squashed into 1, whereas the 2 points remains 1 column on each. So there's some math in how that's done, but essentially this is the distribution we created on the right to randomly determine, we have probability on the vertical axis of how long each given ballot will be. We'll chop it down to that length.
And then once we had generated our ballots and then shortened them based on our truncation distribution, we had to run STV for each multi-district on each map. We, at the beginning of the research process, tried to figure out how we would write code to simulate STV and figured it might be a little bit above our pay grade. So we were glad that we could use the VoteKit package, which had an STV function. And this is a little information about like what's going on behind the scenes when STV ballots are counted. So the first thing that happens is a quota is calculated, and that's the like threshold of votes that any given candidate needs to receive in order to be elected. And this specific type of quota that we use, the Droop quota, when we're electing 5 candidates, any one candidate would need to receive over 1/6 of the vote. So once that threshold is calculated, you go through all the candidates and look at their first, how many times they're ranked first. And if they reach the quota through those first place rankings, then they're elected. And the surplus above the quota of votes for them is redistributed based on voters' next most preferred candidate proportionally. At any time, if you go through and no candidate reaches the quota, then the candidate with the least first place votes is eliminated and their votes are redistributed in the same way. And this process is repeated until the number of seats is filled that you're looking for. So once we had our model all set up, we started running it. We ran it on 10 computers over multiple days because it ended up being thousands of elections. And this is the results that we got from that. We have 2 histograms for Republican seat share and Democratic seat share. The like darker part in the front represents the results from our simulation. And you can see that the on the right, the Democrats were receiving anywhere from 34 to 42 seats, with 38 being the most common, and the Republicans were receiving anywhere from 23 to 31 seats, with 27 being the most common. We also have this lighter part in the back, which represents expected proportional outcomes for each multi-district, and this dashed line, which represents expected proportional outcomes for the entire state. And then our comparison point, we included the actual seat distribution from 2022 because the Attorney General race that we pulled our voter set from happened in 2022 to see if our results were more proportional than the like plurality results that we were actually getting.
So as you can see from those histograms, based on our results, STV seems to give much more proportional party representation across many different district maps, clearly much more proportional than the actual results from 2022, which highly favor the Democratic Party. We saw that the Democratic Party won 46 seats in that race, and our highest number of seats that Democrats got was 42 based on our simulations. So that's a good sign that STV is creating much more proportional results. As you can see, it's not exactly proportional. We think that's likely a result of the difference in party cohesion. Because Democrats were voting more in line with their party, it makes sense that they were winning more seats. Also, it could be because of the variation in our candidate strength, and also the ballot truncation. We're not exactly sure how that is affecting everything. But despite it not being exactly proportional, it's clearly much more proportional than the actual results. We also think it's interesting to note that implementing STV would likely change a lot of things. It could change who's running, how people are voting, different voting laws. For example, because the results are more proportional, third parties have a better chance of winning seats. So there might be more third-party candidates running, more people voting for third parties. Like Celeste was saying, like parties start to matter less and less using this system.
So we went out and we simulated our 10,000 elections and our 10,000 maps, and we collated the data. But there is so much more you could do in so many ways. First, we chose set values for all of these parameters listed on point 1, and we have justifications for them, but we could see what happened if you varied one, varied some in combination. So there is so much there, and realistically, different elections are going to have different values for those parameters. So there's a lot of work to do there. Second, there's the question of how important is the truncation and how is it affecting our election outcome? We could compare to no truncation and compare to different truncation models. The Cambridge City Council and the Colorado State House are very different. So what happens if we use a distribution adapted from different data? So there's a lot that could go on there. Third, we did the Colorado State House. We could have done the Colorado State Senate. We could do other legislative bodies in other states, maybe at a federal level. Colorado was the familiar data set we wanted to work with because that's where we are and a place to start. But this model and process could very easily be adapted to other states with other maps and other data. Fourth, we simulated 2 parties, and something that STV really can enable is more than 2 parties electing candidates with multi-member districts. So what happens if we include a third slate of candidates, or maybe even more than 3 parties? How would that end up? And finally, we chose party as our grouping variable for our slates. What if we chose other factors? Racial representation is one that we could use that is often relevant to a lot of voting rights stuff. So there's definitely a lot of directions you can go beyond just party. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for having us. And if we have time, we're happy to take a few questions.
Maybe I'll stop sharing so we can see who's raising their hand.
Great job. I was going to ask the question of, which you sort of answered, ideas for further study. I was going to ask, there are so many variables, like which ones do you want to investigate further? Which ones tempt you?
I think that candidate strength is a big one, just because that can affect elections quite a bit. If there's one really strong candidate in a certain party, that can really change the outcomes of how that party performs. So I think we're curious about that, especially because we had it random this time. We're really curious to see how much that really is affecting the outcomes. But I think all of them would be interesting. And also because a lot of the studies that we were reading didn't include models where there's shortened ballots, we're interested in how much that ballot like shortening really does affect the results. So I feel like those are two areas we're particularly curious about.
I also think that over time things change. You do one election, people learn from it, they change their behavior. Candidates change their behavior. So it's fascinating. I'm putting in the, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say third party is something we'd also be quite interested in looking at. When we looked at the previous Colorado State House elections, there were many state house districts where you had either a Democrat or a Republican, but they were running against someone from a third party. And the third party, I don't think, won any time. So there were a lot of times where it was very 60-40 within the margins you'd see with your more typical Democrat, Republican state house districts. So just already that's a very interesting factor. And we did do some quick preliminary tests, and once the ball gets rolling and you get above a few percent, it's very possible to get a candidate in there, especially if they're, say, the second or third choice of a lot of voters in the two primary parties.
Neil.
Hand raised, I'll just jump in. Yeah, this is really exciting, and I'm thrilled to see this work, and you're using good code and data and approaches, so thank you. And I certainly agree that for me, the most interesting thing would be to explore how the election would and the party structure and politics itself would evolve. You know, my guess is that this would really reward people for being more moderate in their positions. And so certainly we would see more independents, not just third parties, but fourth parties and 10th parties and so on. And exploring how this stuff works in Scotland, Australia, other places that they use STV might, you know, like, do those places still have two parties, or do they have lots of parties, or how does this work really in most of the world, which most of the world doesn't use STV, but most uses some sort of proportional representation. So I think that's the first place to try to guess. And I don't know, it's a hard thing, but fabulous work. I hope you publicize this, and wonder if you have any plans to publish it, or where are you going with this next?
I think a lot of it's kind of up in the air for next steps, but we are presenting at a conference in October in Boston, and it's like the social choice conference, and we recently found out that we were accepted to present. So we'll be talking to other like experts in the area about what they're doing and answering questions, and also learning a lot about what people are doing with alternative voting systems.
When and where is that again?
It's in Boston. From October 15th to 17th.
Wellesley College specifically is hosting the conference. So if you're there, come say hi.
Going to be in New York then. That's interesting.
Will you put the information in the chat of the date and the conference and the location? I missed the date.
Look at the specific name again, but.
Okay. And Tom, you have your hand up?
Yeah, this is a very interesting presentation. Congratulations. One of the questions I had was, you showed this cohesion, Democrats and Republicans. I was wondering, how do independents play into this, or are they ignored, independent voters? I mean, do they have a cohesion one way or the other, or do you just ignore them in this simulation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We kind of simplified how we were like taking independent voters into account. But one thing we did look at when we were looking at the exit polls was how unaffiliated voters like tended to vote, like if they were voting for Democrats or Republicans. And we kind of saw like across multiple elections, there were similar percentages for unaffiliated voters voting Democrats and Republicans, which kind of led us to believe that maybe like unaffiliated voters do have like a party preference. Like a lot of unaffiliated voters in Colorado are unaffiliated because of like the semi-open presidential primaries and like having more of that option, but may still like have a position one way or the other. But we aren't like fully able to like express how the independent voters would have voted in that situation based on that.
Great. Thanks. Did you mention that it was it's like a 60-40 split, 60%, 40% split between Democrats and Republicans in the House? Is that the current?
I think they said many of the elections had that result, 60 for the victor, 40 for the loser.
And this one came out to be 42 seats for Democrats, you said?
Out of 65.
Right? Out of 65. I see. So
I'm not sure what it is right now. It's either 42 or 43.
And there's somebody who's resigning, but they'll be filled by the same party. Yeah.
Right.
But the simulation had how many Democrats and how many Republicans as the median?
On the specific map we used, but our median for Democrats was 38 and our median for Republicans was 27.
Oh, I see. Okay.
In 2022,
Thanks.
it was 46 Democrats and 19 Republicans.
Oh, okay. Got it. Thanks.
Fewer wasted votes. Yay. So you drew lots and lots of maps. And I know Jen has introduced me to the term ensemble analysis. Is that the same thing you did? We just didn't use the term? Okay. I don't know if you'll be using that term in your conference, but since I learned it, I'm sharing the education I've had. So I think that is such a powerful tool and it impresses me so much. So I want everybody to know about it. And then, so I didn't realize you were going to be drawing new maps because I think Jen mentioned at one point a project maybe your students worked on where you just took the maps that were there right already and you combined 5 state rep districts, and so you got 13 multi-member districts and you ran the numbers maybe with the actual voter data at very truncated ballots because you can only vote for one, right? But I guess you could also assume if there are 5 state rep districts, then and they voted, person A voted for the Republican, then they would vote for that same Republican number 1, and then a different Republican number 2, a different Republican number 3, like that. Was that, am I remembering that right, Jen, that your students did something like that? Or?
Yeah, I had one student who did an honors thesis along those lines. And I think it would be more accurate to say that that was modeling more like a party list system than like an FTB system. Because like these students said, that cohesion parameter is really important. And even as polarized as we are, not everybody votes, when people get to choose multiple candidates, they don't always choose them all from the same party. Whereas in a party list, you just name a party. So you're voting for that party's candidates.
Yeah. Tom, you still have your hand up. Did you have something else you wanted to say?
No, sorry, I just forgot to lower my hand.
No worries. No worries. And we got a new person, Francis. Is Francis still here? I guess Francis left. Okay. Anybody? Oh, I wanted to say I'm not that crazy about the name Jerry Chain.
I think where it comes from is they say you're like running a chain when you're going through that process where you're like picking different maps and it's like mixing like gerrymandering because the main thing that making
so I can speak to that. The algorithm that generates these ensembles is based on something from probability called a Markov chain. And so that's where the name came from. And actually the software was originally developed by some students who were working as a summer project. And the full name of that probabilistic term is Markov chain Monte Carlo, often called MCMC. And the original name of this package was because you were going to run districts with MCMC. It was run DMCMC. And I was really upset that they didn't stick with that name and that they switched to Jerry Chain instead.
Because gerrymandering has such a bad reputation for those of us who care about elections these days, that I'm sorry they put the word Jerry in there, but.
Well, it's about identifying gerrymandering and fighting it. But anyway, I think that name's pretty well baked in at this point.
Okay. And I put in the chat a little video on how single transferable vote works, so you can see the math behind it in a very small election. Thanks very much. If there are no more questions, and we'll go on to our next topic, and we're happy to have Colorado College represented here for our next topic, which is writing to the Secretary of State, asking them to allow us to use single transferable vote. Okay, I will go ahead and, oh, Neil, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just, as always, especially when we have wonderful, bright new faces in the realm, note that one of the real challenges in Colorado and in general with proportional representation in general, and in particular, especially with STV, is that it is impossible to figure out for at least large ones as far as the math and science goes these days. Impossible to figure out what the margin of victory is, and therefore impossible to establish an efficient audit. And we currently are great in Colorado doing risk limiting audits, but lots of the smartest people have tried to come up with risk limiting audits for STV, and it's just a massively intrinsically complicated problem. So that's one of the reasons that I love other proportional representation schemes like proportional approval voting, but really any method that comes up with that has so many possible winning combinations will intrinsically have tight margins and require lots of auditing to have confidence that the right people won. So it's a tough problem and another one to look at as you continue your investigations.
So I've also heard Neil say that auditing is not the end all be all. Proportional representation is much better goal, or a much more important goal than worrying that much about auditing, because you can do other kinds of audits besides a risk limiting audit, and you can do them on any voting method. So
yeah, I totally agree. And
okay.
Really the way that I would frame it is you can probably come up with pretty good audits that at least demonstrate that you're getting a much more fair, proportional, whatever you want to use term, result than existing methods. But there is pushback and there are complications, and it's worth being prepared to understand the auditing implications. Thanks.
And I appreciate all the math that you did on this.
Yeah.
Lee Drutman, who wrote a book called Breaking the Two-Party Doom Loop and advocates for single transferable vote, he now has kind of switched over to party list voting. And I think it's because party list voting is so much easier for people to understand. There's less math involved. It would put you out of a job, maybe, I don't know, but anyway. Okay, are we ready to move on? Thank you so much. You're welcome to stay. We'd love to have you and hear your comments. And Catherine, I put a note in there, direct message to you. I hope you saw it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll move on to the letter to the Secretary of State. I can figure out how to do this. Okay. Do you see the slide? about the talk we just heard?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so now we're going to talk about this letter that we started talking about last time, where we are frustrated because the Secretary of State says that Colorado can use STV and says that approval voting so easy anybody can use it, but the county clerks aren't going to do it until the Secretary of State prods them or gives them permission. So in this letter, and we can change this, we're using the term proportional ranked voting because it's so descriptive and it seems accessible to people. The only proportional ranked voting method that's authorized in Colorado statute is STV. And we also include approval voting because there's interest in Colorado to use approval voting. And we keep hearing it, you can do it. It's off the shelf. Writing the rules is so simple and straightforward, but it just hasn't happened yet. Here's what an approval voting ballot looks like if any of you are interested. If you are electing just one person, you can still vote for more than one person. You're allowed to vote for everybody you support. And there was a lot of talk about taking away the right to vote for two people in the two-winner Denver at-large council contest. And, you know, one thing you could do is you could just use approval voting. It's so simple. It doesn't give you necessarily proportional representation unless you use a special different tabulation method. But my mind went to approval voting when people were saying, wait, what if we don't like any of them? Or what they were talking about all different options at the council meeting. Okay, so I would love for people to just speak up if they see something that they want to change in this letter or something we're missing in this letter, or if you think we have the wrong focus or what. So first of all, there are 4 people that we would send this letter to at the Secretary of State's office. And a problem is that Jenna Griswold is running for election to a different office, and that often makes candidates wary about making changes that would rock the boat. And this should not rock the boat at all because it would just be writing the rules, but who knows? People don't always act the way that I think is sensible. So it's we, the undersigned organizations. If we have multiple organizations, if we don't, we would just say, we are writing to you because we would like to see more voting methods available for jurisdictions. We support electoral reforms that lead to better representation of the electorate and promote effective votes. In this vein, we support the options of proportional ranked voting and approval voting. Currently, jurisdictions shut down any, maybe we should say counties, shut down any conversation of adopting proportional ranked voting or approval voting by citing the lack of Secretary of State guidance for such elections. And this is true. It's happened in a few different cities with their county clerks. So we are asking that the Colorado Elections Division move forward with the actions below for proportional ranked voting PRV and approval voting. Certify software. This is the software bullet. Certify the PRV portion of the ranked voting tabulation software that Colorado licenses. Also certify software to accept and tabulate approval voting ballots. Set rules for conducting risk limiting audits, RLAs, of an approval voting election, and set in motion the changes needed to do an appropriate audit of a PRV contest.
So I might elaborate on that. Just, you know, you need to say a sentence or two to the effect that please don't just say do an RLA for a PRV contest since that's mathematically impossible.
I'm not exactly,
Well,
are you
okay.
suggesting verbiage or what?
Just if I'm the Secretary of State or whoever and I'm reading this, I say, why don't I just say set rules for conducting RLAs for both of these types of elections? So, you know, there needs to be maybe a footnote or something for the fact that currently full RLAs are not practical for PRV elections.
I know that Dwight Shillman is super aware of that.
Okay.
I mean, we can put it in. Tony gave us the mandate to make this a one-pager.
Okay, I believe that's a good idea.
A good idea to have it be one page.
Yeah. Keep it simple.
Given that Dwight Shillman knows, and I'm guessing Judd Choate does also, that we can't right now conduct an RLA of PRV contest.
This is Tony. Being, I wouldn't say exactly a novice, but somebody who doesn't totally understand all this stuff. It crossed my mind, and I think this is what Jen is saying, maybe not, but crossed my mind that as things evolve, that this has limited what the Secretary of State, what we want from the Secretary of State, this kind of audit for this kind of thing. Now, if I'm wrong, fine, but it just seems to me that it's limiting, and you can use footnotes. You can put them on the second page if you want to.
So you're saying we should not be limiting?
Okay.
Well,
Here's what I don't want to have happen. I don't remember exactly where this was, but I was in a meeting at least once where this conversation was coming up and someone said, well, we'll just write a rule that says they have to do RLAs anyway. And I was like, you can't legislate against math. Like, you know, people don't, you know, I could see someone who didn't understand this issue just writing a rule that says, well, we do RLAs, so you must do an RLA of a PRV contest without realizing that that can't currently be done.
So Jen, I just have to, you know, the tricky part here is you can always do an RLA of any voting method. You just have to do a hand count of all the ballots. So, you know, we can't say it's mathematically impossible. It's delicate to say it's really challenging. It kind of puts things in a bad light for what we're asking for. I'm inclined, you know, and I'm torn because I would love to have, you know, a 10-page letter that explained all this so that they actually got it right. But I agree with Tony that you just don't want to do that. So I think that the words appropriate audit and setting a process in place makes sense. I think we have people who would receive this who would get it. I'm inclined to try to keep it simple for the moment and get things in play and then give our best advice as the field progresses.
Okay, fine by me.
How about a word like a robust audit? That's a word that's used a lot in science and math. And
appropriate is fine.
Okay.
Chris has his hand up.
Okay, Chris.
I was just going to say audits, conduct audits. Let somebody else figure that out. I mean, that's part of the process is you got to say, is the audit worth the cost of doing it?
I think these days you have to do audits or people will throw a fit.
No, I'm not saying don't do audits. I'm just saying certify software to accept and tabulate audits, or no, set rules for audits, conducting audits.
Colorado is particularly proud of their RLAs. We piloted it in our state before any other state did. So, and we brag about it being the gold standard. So the fact that we can easily do as easily as for plurality, we can do an RLA of an approval voting election. We should just, I mean, I think the first part, nobody has any problem with. The second part is the, how do we phrase it kind of question. I mean, help me out here, Neil, but I think we want to encourage RLAs when possible.
Yeah.
So do you have, Chris, are you okay with this, or you're just suggesting something else that might have worked better for people, but are you okay with it the way it is?
Well, it would be fine, but my belief is that the simpler you make something and the fewer words you have and the fewer pages, you're more likely to get people to at least look at it, as opposed to putting all the factors in there and then they won't even look at it. Say, hey, this is too complicated. Let's move on to something else. Just leave things out.
We had a longer letter before.
I have a supporter in Chris, so thank you. I'm probably on my gravestone, it'll say she's the supporter of one-pagers.
Okay, I guess I'm going to move on to the third bullet point, which is promulgate those rules and procedures after you set them for conducting PRV and approval voting elections. And there's evidently some issue in Broomfield that Tom was alerting me to, where the Broomfield clerk is saying they don't have the rules for conducting an RLA of an instant runoff voting election. So they canceled it for Broomfield and for 2 more years. So I don't know if that's ever been figured out, but anyway, go ahead, do bullet number 3, promulgate the rules. And then a final closing paragraph, please let us know what other actions are needed in order for Colorado County clerks to be able to conduct PRV and approval voting elections, and how our organization or organizations can help in the effort. Thank you. And then in terms of who signs, Tony, maybe you can help with this. This would come from the League of Women Voters as the primary signer, I believe. I don't know if it would be the president who would sign, the executive director. It might depend on who approves it. It could be me as the Alternative Voting Methods Task Force facilitator and Karen Sheik as the elections. I think that's for the board to decide, maybe.
Yeah, but I think president or executive director, this is a high level kind of thing. So I think the top people.
And then in terms of other organizations, I mean, the reason we have written this letter is because Landon Mascarenas, who's with Courageous Colorado, said, you want these rules. Have you talked to the Secretary of State? And yes, we have talked to them, but we haven't sent an official letter. So sending an official letter is, in black and white, and then they might ignore it, but at least we'll have a record that we sent it. And so I don't know if Courageous Colorado, I don't know what they're working on these days. I know Landon was also interested in the IRV for Denver, and that's not going to be on the ballot, it looks like. And so I don't know if this is something Courageous Colorado is going to sign. I think he had a different idea of what this was going to be about than proportional representation, say, and approval voting. So I don't know if we want to worry or pursue that or what. For sure, I think RCV for Longmont would be interested in signing this. I don't know if RCV for Colorado would be interested in signing it because, well, they're part of Courageous Colorado, but they could sign it independently.
Celeste, as far as RCV for Colorado goes, I think you should still forward it, asking them to sign it. I've been talking to some of the board members about it,
And John Lemke was supposed to be in this call today, and he's not here.
Oh yeah, and you know, they could decide to sign it as is, or perhaps sign a parallel letter, because
Sure.
the
Sure.
approval voting may be the thing that may prevent them from
Right.
signing.
But yeah, if they wanted to sign a separate letter and leave out approval voting, that'd be fine. I mean, you know, we're all working for better voting methods, and if you want to focus on one and not multiple, that's okay. I mean, yeah. So also the Center for Election Science is a national organization that advocates for approval voting. I mean, they might be interested in signing. I don't think we want the Approval Voting Party of Colorado to sign, because we don't usually work with parties unless it's, I mean, that just seems odd. But anyway, anybody else have other ideas of organizations? I mean, we could reach out to Common Cause or groups like that. Tony, do you have any ideas? Or
I'm sure there's a whole list of groups that we could contact. And one of the things we could look at also is the list that the league has of groups that we work with for a variety of reasons. We just go through that list and look at the ones that would be applicable for this kind of thing.
Okay.
And Beth would certainly have the list.
Okay. Okay, I'll talk to Beth about that, I guess. Beth Hendricks. Okay. I am proposing that we change the jurisdictions on this second line to county clerks, because those are the ones who are running the elections and saying we can't do it.
Yeah, I think that's actually important. Good job. Good catch.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one more.
I also note that there's some reasons given in kind of a possible second page. I think it would make actually more sense to send it as a one pager, make it look like a one pager, but include, like in an email or in a, I don't know if we send actual paper letters or whatever, a link to information about proportional right, or maybe highlight those things. But I think you can do like promotional stuff about it without making that a text of the letter. An appendix,
So
you want to call
you're
it.
talking about this section right here on the screen right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, the question is, do we include this? I mean, one thing we could do is we could include it in the request for other organizations to sign it, but it doesn't have to be part of the letter. You know, this might push it over one page. Also, if we get lots of people to sign it, that would push it over one page, but I don't think Tony's worried about that. Anyway, there are some great reasons to have proportional representation, and four are listed here. And some of them all work together. And then they're continuing on. The last two are sort of unique. They're more about multi-winner contests than they are about proportional representation, or I should say multi-winner contests do this whether or not they're proportional. You don't have gerrymandering problems so much. And then you still have winner take all, say. You could have winner if you don't have a proportional voting method, but and then you always have more candidates running. Like in Broomfield, they often have one or two candidates running. And so when they were supposed to run the instant runoff voting election in 2023, they canceled it because they didn't have three candidates running for any seats. Whereas in Boulder, we elect 5 or now it's 4 council members at a time, and we always get more than 4 people running. So there's always an election. They don't cancel it. St. Vrain Valley School District, for years, they canceled their school board elections because they never had more than 1 person running. So yeah, I think that's, oh, and then the last thing is the backup or the parallel plan, depending on how this goes, is to pass a bill that would require the Secretary of State to write these rules. That's called enabling legislation, and that's what House Bill 21-1071 did for instant runoff voting. We would need a bill sponsor and legislative support. We might only get a bill sponsor for one of those 2 requests, maybe only STV, maybe only approval voting. I don't know, but that's where we are. And that's the end of what we got here. I think I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everybody's face and we can chat. Let's see, did all the, Beth is still here. Oh, and we have a new person. Gary is here. Gary, when did you join us? What, is there anything in particular you wanted to talk about or hear in our meeting?
No, I did a wild goose chase over the East Library, thinking this meeting was there, and it wasn't.
What city are you in?
Colorado Springs.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry about that.
So it means the meeting on the 28th, is that still viable at Panino's, or is that going to be another online meeting?
I don't know, maybe Shelley knows.
What's the answer, Shelley? Come on, speak up.
I'm right here and don't know anything about an in-person meeting with regards to this task force, sir.
Well, I got an email saying the meetings were at East Library today and at Panino's on the 28th.
Do you know who you got that from, Gary? Can you forward that email to Celeste? Because we didn't send that out. That's not from us.
Well, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris, you have your hand up?
Second. Yes, I'm sorry, I muted myself. Who actually writes the rules at the county clerk's office or for the county clerk, or do they hire a consultant to write the rules, or how does that work?
We have a Title I election code, and the Secretary of State writes the rules that for any Title I election. And Title 31 is municipal code, but municipal elections also run under Title I, it turns out, although there was some disagreement about that. Yes, the secretaries, they're all waiting for the Secretary of State. So for instance, I talked to the Arapahoe elections person and for about Littleton adopting approval voting, and they said, we can't do it. You have to, Secretary of State has to give us, authorize it, basically.
Well, I mean, that's also disputed. You know, a lot of people say in a home rule county, in a home rule city, the city could do it itself.
Yes.
The county clerk could agree to do it if they wanted to, but, you know, they're hesitant to jump out ahead of the curve because they got enough work to do. But yeah.
Well, Neil, you hit exactly what I'm talking about. Is they have enough work to do. So they're going to say, I don't want to write any rules because that's more work. And if I say we don't want to do this, then I won't have to write any rules, and I can accommodate my current workload. So that's kind of why I asked the question, because if you say we need legislative authorization, that sounds like you're asking for money. And that's probably not a popular subject. I don't know if that's clear enough, but I'm just saying.
Money is always an unpopular subject. And yes, I mean, the Secretary of State has to prioritize their work, or they have to have a lot more people, a lot more bandwidth. But yeah, we're fighting their priority list. So yeah, I don't know if Colorado College students want to weigh in on this, or want to, I don't know if your group, Beth, has a name like the Democracy Lab. Maybe the Democracy Lab would like to sign on to this letter. I don't know.
We would have to check and see what we're sort of allowed to do, given that we are in an educational context, and lobbying is not something that's really okay for us. And so we would really need to investigate what we're allowed to do, and what they would like to do as individuals is totally up to them. But I would have to take a little time to research what my what the Colorado College Administration would like us to be able to sign on to. But we're just kind of listening so that we can hear what the status is. I'm sure that we would love to. We'll talk about this when we get together and think about, like, wow, what would it take to really implement this? But yeah, I don't think we're able to like sign off right now, but thank you.
Okay. Well, if you know any legislators who might be interested, just tell me their name and I'll contact them, or, or tell somebody else. I mean, tell all your friends to contact them. And anyway, we can help maybe. Chris.
How about Center for Election Science? Would they be interested in doing something like providing a framework for a set of rules for a county clerk or city clerk?
I think it's so easy. There's not much you have to do.
Well, see, that makes it all. Then you write a letter and say Appendix 1 is a proposed set of rules.
Yeah.
And of course, I like that because I'm an approval voting guy, and I know the rules are going to be very simple.
I think Neil would be willing to write those rules probably, if, or I mean,
I think it's a matter of like adding the word approval voting somewhere to just clarify that everything that we're doing now already works fine with approval voting. The software is in place, the rules are in place. Just make sure you distinguish the number of winners from the number that you can vote for.
Should be easy. Okay, is there anything? So Rich asked, are we open to drifting off STV? And we have 2 minutes left. So
well, I'll claim 2 minutes. I have been oftentimes thinking about increasing voter turnout by having our ballots sent with a paid postage return envelope. Given the financial situation of the state of Colorado, all proposals such as that are dead on arrival, except for maybe something very small. So my most recent idea is to require the clerk and recorder's office to send a paid postage return envelope to all individuals who have also a handicap placard. These individuals cannot get to a drop box as easily as other individuals. I've talked to the El Paso County Clerk and Recorder, Steve Schleichert, and he thought that this was very doable, manageable. I don't know if it's an idea that is so small in scope that the League of Women Voters would not want to venture into this territory. But if there's ever a little bit of movement forward, a chink in the armor for everyone saying, oh, it's too expensive to send our ballots by paid postage, as so many other states and jurisdictions do, I thought it might be interesting to float the idea out, but probably my 2 minutes are already gone.
So, Rich, I think that's a fascinating idea. And it's also an idea you should bring up with the elections task force, Karen Sheik, because that's more an elections overall issue than a voting method issue, I would say.
It is a way of returning a ballot, which I call a voting method, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for coming to this meeting. Did you want to say something, Barb? Or are you just waving goodbye?
No, I'm just waving goodbye, but thank you. It's very interesting. Seems like we have a lot of challenges ahead, but thanks for forging ahead.
And Barb, you're on the board of the state league, so you will see a letter, I think. I think we agreed
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I always didn't know if it had to go through action and advocacy before it comes to the state board or how that all works.
I think we'll send it to Beth Hendricks and ask her and Irene Tynes and ask them what the next step is. So
Okay. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Great
Okay, thank
job,
you.
Celeste.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Well, thank you all
And-
very much.
Catherine, you said you'd send the slides. So if you would do that, that would be great.
Yeah, really excited.
Yes,
to
if
see
you
all
could
that
send
work.
me an
Thank
email
you.
address, I can literally download the PowerPoint and send it right to you.
Can I do it right now? I'm going to put it in. I mean, it's in the, whoops. Okay,
I could also put the link in the chat if anyone wanted to look at it.
if you can do that, that's fine.
If you
Here's
want
my
Just put it
email.
on anyone
to
with a
send
link
it
can
to
view.
Celeste also. We can give it to you one way or another.
Okay, great. And so I'll download it and put it in our drive. Is that okay?
Of course.
Okay.
We
Great.
could also send you our paper when it's done. We're
Yeah.
doing some final details this week, but when we have a good draft, we can email that to you as well.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, I wish all three of you are going to Wellesley. Is that right?
Nora's not. Nora's doing something else really exciting though.
I will be
Okay,
abroad, so I sadly can't join, but
Where are you going? For
I'll
a
be-
semester or a block or whatever it is? Or
a semester. I'll be in Lisbon, Portugal. So
oh, nice.
exciting, yes.
Wonderful. My husband did a year in a British school in like 7th grade there.
So fun.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out the meeting then, I guess.
Thank you all so much for having us. It was
Thank
fun
you.
to be able to join.
It's so nice to have your energy and youthful enthusiasm and
Technical savvy and
civic engagement and yeah.
My daughter graduated from Colorado College too, so we're real fans.
So are we.
I'm gonna stop the recording right